think it's okay. Just a few comments. Did you have any questions in particular?
I just look at it like by my cell phone, so I don't know.
Okay.
But because I didn't bring my computer.
Okay. All right. All right. Let me see.
Yeah, I just remember that I sent you a message that I was having problems by just pasting the logo on the.
Okay. Yeah. Don't worry about the logo. Yeah. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah, because I had like a format in the Word document. Actually, have like charts, and it is like difficult to paste like the chart to the Google document because of like the format.
What kind of charts are you using? Are they tables or are they like graphs? Like
no, they are tables like just with information. Actually, there was one the observation sheet that I didn't paste it like the way it is because it was like time, date, and activity, and from this side I had drawings, but it was like separated with that.
Okay.
Line.
If you have tables, if you can, I mean, if you have access to the internet and you can do it in Google Drive, it's easier to go from Google Drive to Word than it is sometimes from Word to Google Drive. But yeah, so if let's see here. Okay, just let's see. After that, we'll read now. Let's questionnaires. Okay, yeah, it's all right. Just a few comments that I made here. So yeah, and I think I would use the same font. You can remove the bold, and I would add a heading for each of your instruments. So right below Appendix A or Appendix B, I would have a level 2 heading. So all the way to the left, give this a heading. So this might be teacher questionnaire.
Teacher questionnaire.
And this might be the observation sheet.
Just after appendix.
Yeah, so just below Appendix B, all the way to the left, like a level 2 heading, you can add the title, and then below you can then include the header. And I would change all of this font. I would remove all of the bold except for the heading. So Appendix B will be in bold, and then the title of the instrument will be in bold. And this would be, looks like an interview guide. So I would say something like interview guide for teachers or interview guide for students. And then the header, let's see. Basically, I would just copy and paste the header, the heading that you have. So, for example, if this is your heading, and I would double check the fonts, but once you have it fixed and set as you want it, then copy and paste it for each of the instruments.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the easiest. So it looks like you have some information that's the same, but not quite all of it. So I would just copy and paste it, and then you should be okay. Okay. So how have you started collecting the data? Have you started any observations this week?
But one or two teachers didn't give me back data, and I don't know where to find them.
Okay. So.
Okay. But from these ones, I think the ones that I could observe is this one, and this one.
Okay, and why? Why do you think these are the three?
First, I was before I applied the question, I asked them, what levels do you have? And they tell me, oh, I give level 2, I give level blah blah blah. And I consider like to apply the questionnaire to those who give like basic levels. I have my limit that is 3, level 3. And I think, for example, Vinicio gives level 2, also Hera, and Cesar also. Level 2, level 1.
Do they indicate here the levels?
No, well, I asked them before. Yeah, what level do you give? And so I applied the question. Yeah, I thought that I should include like the level.
Okay. Well, you might include it later, like in the heading that we were talking about before. You could include that perhaps there, the levels that they teach.
And the three in the very the second page they mentioned like they face problems with instruction.
Okay. So I would think in your participants section you can mention very briefly the reason why you chose. So you could say these participants were chosen because they mentioned that they had some problems with something very general that's coming directly from this instrument.
Okay.
And I think you can mention that briefly in the participants section. And in your final presentation, also your old defense, you'll probably want to mention that as well.
Okay. In the presentation?
Uh-huh. And we can talk about that later, but that's basically, you'll want to mention that briefly. Now, any other information that's coming from these questionnaires, you can also use later when you start observing classes and you do your interviews. You can kind of use this and information along with everything else. The rest of the information from the other questionnaires, not so much. So we're not going to be using the information from the rest of the questionnaires, but from these three participants, you can use any of the information, any of these other questions that that you find is relevant. So imagine that you do your observations and you come up with some questions for your interview. You also want to revisit or look at this questionnaire to say, okay, I have this information. This is what they told me in the questionnaire. This is what I observed, and I have some questions about. You can form questions about that. So it's not just the observation, but it's also the observation along with the information from the questionnaire.
Okay.
Right? Because there might be some things that you find interesting that you didn't expect based on what they said here, perhaps.
Okay.
But that's kind of that's what I would suggest doing is trying to use, because essentially now you're going to be triangulating this information from the questionnaire with the observation along with the interview.
Okay.
So go ahead and I would go ahead and start talking with these three individuals. And
is that okay if I use the three teachers? Or would you like me to use only two?
It's up to you, right? If you have to find, you want to find the reason. There has to be something unique about these three, and so if there's something that's interesting about these three that you want to look at, fine. If you find there are two are just really interesting and not so much the third one,
okay, that would be
not. I would say anywhere between 2 to 3 teachers would be enough. But I think that maybe talk with each of the three and schedule the time and see how that works out. Because maybe one teacher's less available or for whatever reason. Because I would like that you get 2 to 3 observations for each of the teachers. So if it turns out that you're only able to get one observation from one teacher, perhaps it's better to put that teacher aside and focus only on 2 and try to get at least 3 observations, because you may need. I really don't know. I say 3 observations, but you really need to analyze and reflect after each class observation to ask yourself, am I getting good information that I need? How much more information do I need? So you are basically asking yourself, after 3 observations, do I have enough information that I need? And I would rather that you have enough time in case you need one more observation and you still have time to do that, versus having maybe too many teachers and you're not able to get all the observations in. So maybe before you decide, talk with each of the 3, plan your next 3 weeks with these 3 teachers with regard to the observations and the interviews, and see how that works. Okay, if it looks like that third participant's going to cause problems for whatever reason, then I would recommend going with the 2. But again, if you limit it to 2, make sure that you have a reasoning. these two are interesting or different. It's not just that you just decided to go with two. That there's a certain reason to do that. So that's the only thing I would mention. Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe talk to them and then let me know if you're not sure. If you're indecisive and you're not really sure, then we need to talk about it so that you can start the data collection process. So you need to try to start this week with the observations, but really plan your time well with these teachers so that you are allowing yourself enough time to finish. Holy Week, I'm not really counting. Technically, we have until Holy Week, so we have like 3.5 weeks. I mean, technically, we're in Tuesday now, so it's like 3 weeks from tomorrow, basically, is what we have. So, if you're here at the university, perhaps it's not an issue, but sometimes Holy Week, So I'm telling everyone to try your best to get everything that you need within the first 3 weeks, and then if you still need time, then you still have 3 more days that next week to get it done. But just plan, the best you can because things come up, stuff happens sometimes, and it's out of your control. So yeah, go ahead and start talking to the teachers, and just
the interview has to be like right away after the observation?
Not necessarily. So here's the thing: you're going to be interviewing. So after every class, ask yourself, questions like, okay, what type of information? Am I getting good information? Is everything clear? Would it benefit me to have an interview now, and before I continue with the observations, or should I wait? Now, as you know, when you interview that first time and you're asking very specific questions, again, it depends on the type of questions you ask, but you're going to be revealing something about your research. And it's likely to change the behavior of the teacher for the subsequent classes that you're going to observe. So you may or may not want that to happen. You may or may not want them to. You want them to teach as normal as possible, right? I mean, of course, you're going to be there observing, so they're going to be. They may or may not be acting the normal way that they normally do. But if you are asking a lot of questions, they know what you're going to be looking for, or they could know what you're going to be looking for, and then they could be changing accordingly. So that's what you need. It's a balance. It's like, well, and if I do have an interview, what questions do I ask to not reveal too much, or would I just be better off waiting? So that's something you're going to have to decide. Now, if you want to discuss that more concretely, specifically based on actual, evidence that you observed, and you're not sure in what questions, we can have a conversation. We can talk about it. But I don't want to tell you right now exactly how you should do it. I want you to reflect on it and decide. And if you want to talk about it, certainly we can do that. Or if you want to send an email, whatever. This type of thing, probably a conversation would be easier. A face-to-face conversation to be able to really decide quickly on what you need to do. But that's what I would suggest doing. So I know a lot of students are they're doing their observations after 3, but that's not set in stone. That's not a rule or anything. That's just how they decided to do it, and the reason being that they want maybe to see a change, to see if the teacher's changing. Just depends on the research questions, and it depends on the purpose, really. So you're focusing on instructions, and so if you reveal, I noticed you're asking questions, and you always ask questions here, and if you interview the teacher after the first observation talking about questions, then you're going to be like, okay, well now I'm going to be really conscious about how I'm asking questions, perhaps. I mean, it's normal behavior, right? So that's about what I would say about that. So just think about it after the first one. If you need to have a good reason. What I'm saying is you need to have a good reason for having that first interview after the first or second observation. If you know you're going to have more, it should be a really good reason. Because if you have, maybe it's just one general question about one small aspect that has nothing to do with questions,
Mhm.
and you don't think, you're not going to mention questions, so it's not going to really influence later on. Well, then perhaps it's okay to do that. But you also have to think about how many interviews you're going to have with a teacher, and you don't want to be a burden on the teacher. You don't want them to think, oh, geez, another interview, okay. So you don't want to inconvenience the teacher either. So
Yeah, so basically, like,
it's a
more
balance.
appropriate, like, to have one interview, like, every
Well, just think about it. Yeah. So yeah, just if the teacher's like, hey, no problem, and this is something you need to ask, and maybe ask again, even though you ask in the questionnaire, okay, do you have time to do if I observe you 3 times, and I have let's say an interview at the end, perhaps an interview after an additional interview, would that be a problem? And we're like, no. Well, then you know that they're kind of pressed for time, or if they say, no problem, whatever you need, so try to get in that first conversation when you meet with them, kind of get a feel for their availability, their willingness to participate, and make your best judgment. Make a decision based on your overall feeling for their willingness to participate. All right. So that's what I would recommend there. Anything else?
Well, no, because I haven't looked at my comments.
Take a look at them. A lot of the things are just small things. As you schedule your procedure, as you schedule your data collection, and you start actually doing it, go back and make notes, make changes here because things are going to be changing. So the procedure is going to probably change. Maybe your instruments, like your interview guys, are going to change. So just make notes or changes here to remind yourself to make all those last minute changes. So not to leave it, because that's what because I don't want, like, later on on May 23rd, say, oh, that's what I had, but I forgot to go back and change it because this is, that's what I don't want to happen. So, yeah, just a reminder to go back and change that as you need to.
Yeah. Okay.
And what else? Everything else is coming together nicely, I think. Right now, it's just critical that the time here that you plan, right. So every week we'll be talking. Bring in data that you have if you have doubts, and I'd like to know kind of how you're progressing each week to see if things are moving along. But remind yourself about the research questions.
Yes.
Like, okay, I want to answer my research questions, and each week we should see how the information or the data is coming together to answer those. So, all right.
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, hang in there, and just let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.
And from my classmates, what do you recommend me to take a look so I could see? Because I take a look at everybody's work.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, and that's good, and that's good that you're doing that. As far as like, I mean, most of my comments are really similar to everyone else. But you can check out Luce and Kelsey's work. They're coming together nicely. Yeah, I mean, I think you could look at Kelsey's or Luce's, and see how they're. But it's good that you're checking out all of those. I'm going to be looking at that. I may upload a video. I think I'm going to do a summary video again this week, based on all the feedback that I'm getting. So I hope that'll kind of help bring up some of the key points that I'm looking at. A lot of the things that I'm mentioning are real small things, like, and a lot of the things that I'm mentioning, and I'm not so much in your case, I don't remember, but it's being more specific, like being more detailed, like, right. So even in a procedure, just imagine yourself trying to explain to someone, like, if they want to duplicate your research, what would you tell them to do? So it might be saying, okay, first I'm going to observe one teacher. Teacher A, I'm going to observe teacher A the first week and then do an interview. The second week, I'm going to observe teacher B, and then do an interview, and so on. Teacher C, the third week, I see, but you can explain it like that if that's how you do it in the procedure. But it's not necessarily complicated, but it's just kind of step by step how you actually do it. So right now, I'm trying to get everyone kind of to think in terms of being more specific, but realize that it's probably going to change whenever you actually apply it. Okay, so that's
after applying it, that information may change.
Yeah, and it probably will. And I'd like for everyone to kind of go back and look at it. If it's the same, fine. But if there's something that you can be a little bit more clear about or actually change, say maybe you on one teacher you interviewed after the second observation, for example, or whatever. Maybe you had a reason for doing it differently for one of your participants. Go back and you can include that right in the procedure section. But yeah, take a look at Kelsey's and Luce's and just think about being more specific and things like spacing and just little things like that are just part of the writing process. So yeah, once we get closer, I'll be making more videos about the overall how to really clean it up at the final the draft and I think things will kind of fall into place because it'll be things that we've already talked about and so I mean I think all of you are doing well, coming together nicely. It's just part of the process, even though it seems like a lot of feedback, a lot of comments. They're small things, and I'm trying to mention most of the things that I see so that you guys can see patterns and say, okay, well, I need to focus on these things. And I would recommend going through and focus on each error one at a time. So maybe one is heading. So you check all your headings. And you check all the spacing around your headings first. Then you go back and you check for indentations or whatever, and then you just check one at a time. And I think I think it's easier to do it that way. But go ahead and start with the data collection, and let's talk next week about what you have up to that point. And always ask yourself if you think you're getting enough information, right? If after one class, one observation, you feel like the information you're not getting any information, then we need to talk about it. Or figure out another what to do. Yeah, because the main thing is that after every observation you should have something. Some classes are going to be better than others, but I don't want you to waste time observing when you're not getting any information and you really don't know what to do about it. So if that happens, hopefully it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, we need to talk about it so that you're not wasting time collecting data. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent.
All right. Well, hang in there then. We'll see you next week. Have a good week, and I'll see you next tutoring session. All right. Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Bye.